what was the overall Christian view of Maimonides, the Rambam, and what was the Muslim one? How did they differ in their views? I know this is a very general question,
Yeah.
going over many periods of history, but Christian view, Muslim view.
So I wouldn't say that there are any general views as much as we have specific examples. I read that poem
Right.
from a 13th century physician and poet. So that the Muslim view of Maimonides would have related to appreciating his abilities as a physician and his dedication to philosophy, because his study of philosophy comes from an Islamic context. The Christian view also initially would be philosophy, like Aquinas studied Maimonides. You had Maimonidean texts that were translated into Latin. So there's also philosophy and medicine. Now, after the medieval period, there remains an interest within the Christian world, not so much in the Islamic world. So that in the 16th century, you have additional Maimonidean texts that are being translated into Latin, including he has this letter that he had written to a group of rabbis in Provence on, it's called basically this letter on astrology. I mean, they were concerned about the Messiah and also this issue of astrology. There's an interest in astrology, but this is irrational, and therefore, what do we do with this? And Maimonides writes about this. So that was translated into Latin. This gets into Christian scholarship in the 16th, 17th century, also connected to Christian Hebraism, where there's a Christian understanding or appreciation for going back, in essence, to try and understand Christian theology from a quote-unquote original Jewish or original rabbinic point of view. So now what's fascinating in the really latter half of the 17th and the early half of the early 18th century is that there's sort of a legitimate, sincere study of Maimonides and the Mishnah Torah connected to an overall, for some Christian scholars, the study of the Mishnah. And so actually in the exhibition, we have an example of something written by Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton himself would use the Rambam in two cases. One, he was attempting to reform the calendar. The Gregorian calendar wasn't adopted in England until the 1750s, and Newton was involved in trying to, he was attempting to reform the calendar, and so he looked at Maimonides, his laws of the new moon, and another case as well. And the context for that was a general appreciation of the Rambam in those centuries in the Christian world.